point of machine learning isn't necessarily to garnish new high-level strategies. Sometimes that is an outcome and something that you can do, but those high-level strategies aren't necessarily going to be because you found this brand new thing that's super important. Those high-level strategies are going to be because you're able to work at a more granular level. Mm-hmm. So specifically, let's say that I have an understanding of which of my customers, I generally know what might cause customer churn, right? It might be because of this or because of that. And for different businesses, it's going to be different things that cause customer churn. But ultimately, I guess one example that I've enjoyed, let's go the reverse way, is conversion. Say I have a mobile application. Studies everywhere show that iOS users are more likely to convert and pay money, make in-app purchases than Android users. Mm-hmm. And so I have an Android build and I have an iOS build. When it comes down to it, some Android users are going to be more likely to convert than some iOS users. And what machine learning allows me to do is it allows me to not make a base assumption and just say, oh, all Android users are worse than all iOS users. It allows me to blend and really differentiate and say, okay, these iOS users from here over, they are the users that I want, and it's these Android users that I want from here over. And so it allows me to make more specific decisions, mm-hmm. and be a little bit more tactical. And I would say the same thing like with emails. Rather than sending a blanket email, my high level strategy then becomes to be more targeted, more specific, rather than make blanket statements or blanket assumptions about marketing or ad spend or retargeting, etc. Yeah. It allows me to make very specific, targeted decisions that should yield a higher ROI, whether that's just because I'm spending my time more efficiently or my money more efficiently, etc.
That it's interesting that you say that by making micro changes, it's really that's going to influence the macro decision. Because a lot of times, I think in business we think, hey, we need to have a high level strategy, and then we're going to bring it down to the micro. But it sounds like in this case, it's opposite. We're going to impact the micro strategy, which is then going to impact the macro strategy.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair way to look at that. And part of that is when you consider having a micro strategy like that, no human has the ability to go through and look through thousands and thousands of user data and say, okay, yeah, I mean, and sure, they might be able to make a decently educated guess, mm-hmm. at how likely that customer is to churn based on looking at some things. And a human would start to pick up on patterns. The problem and the reason and the place where machine learning makes it possible is that it's able to iterate through thousands of records, and push out those predictions and make that very micro strategy feasible and feasibly automated, so that you're removing a human from the loop, in making those very micro decisions.
Got it. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and that is really what we're seeing with a lot of our clients, as you know, is take someone like Singular. There's no way that they're going to go through all their customers and say, here's the ones that are going to be churning, but now they have an automated way that they can push out to the field and to the appropriate marketing people to say, this is the message that we should be targeting to these people. That was never possible before.
Right.
One thing that you were saying, I want to touch on again, which is with the Android example, it's kind of sounded like what you were saying to me is machine learning is really good for finding the edge cases. So you can make broad strokes and say all Android sucks and all iPhone's great, but really it's more nuanced than that. And there are those edge cases that there's probably, let's call it 15% of Android users that you could be getting You just don't know which 15% there are, and those are the people on the edge that, with the appropriate marketing message, could be tipped over to the good column. Just wanted your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think that's a little bit different than what I was saying, but I still think that's relevant. Ultimately, yeah, that's one of the strengths of using machine learning, and one of the things that I think successful clients do. I think successful clients recognize that machine learning can give you a probability of an outcome. And so, let's say that it's gym membership, right? And I have all of my gym members, and I'm able to predict with some probability, uh, say that it's retention. So the probability the gym member will be retained. Um, if I have a really low percentage, that does mean there is a probability that that person stays, but ultimately, as a business, what I would be really cool and would increase my retention is if I focus on these people, maybe between this like 30 and 60%, knowing that the people 60% and above are just so likely that I don't necessarily even need to interact with them,
Yeah.
or let me rephrase that, do anything additional to what we're already doing in order to retain that user, or that gym member. And so let me focus my efforts on these people between 30 and 60%, and I'm just going to ignore the people who are 0 to 30% likely. Just because I want to maximize my efforts. And if I was to, let's say, a gym decided to offer a single personal free trainer session in order to try and retain them, well, that means you're spending money. There's a cost to that, right? And you don't want to spend money to retain money that you're going to keep no matter what already, right? Then you're just reducing your profitability. And you don't want to spend money on something that is so low, that has such a low likelihood of generating more income. And so you spend that money where you're going to get a high ROI in pushing those people from maybe being 40% probabilistically to be retained to 60%. Yeah. And that's trying to take the results of machine learning and do something a little bit extra. And so from there, you could have an automated email that says, hey, if this machine learning output puts this person between X probability and X probability, then automatically trigger this email and send them this offer.
That's a really tactical and a really pragmatic way to use machine learning.